My name is Josh. I'm 36 years old, and I never thought a piece of steak and a glob of spit would be the catalyst that destroyed my family. But here we are. Before I tell you how I brought my brother's world crashing down around him, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I'm reading through them, and it helps to know I'm not the only one who has dealt with toxic family dynamics. It started on a Sunday. It was supposed to be a celebration. My sister, Natalie, had just gotten a small promotion at her retail job, and my mother insisted we all come together for a family dinner. I knew the drill. Family dinner meant I was expected to bring the expensive wine, foot the bill for the catering if there was any, and sit there while my older brother, Caleb, took shots at my life. I pulled into the driveway of the house I grew up in, the house my mother still lived in. The engine of my Panamera purred into silence. I sat there for a moment, gripping the leather steering wheel. I worked 80-hour weeks for years to afford this car. It wasn't just a vehicle. It was my sanctuary. It was proof that I had built something from nothing. But I knew the moment I stepped out, it would become a weapon used against me. Sure enough, Caleb was already on the porch, nursing a beer. He didn't wave. He just stared at the car with that familiar mix of hunger and hatred. I grabbed the bottle of vintage Cabernet I'd bought, pricey enough to make me wince at the register, and walked up the path. "Nice ride, Josh," Caleb sneered as I got closer. He didn't move out of the doorway. Must be nice to burn money on German engineering while the rest of us are trying to survive in the real world. "It gets me from point A to point B, Caleb," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Happy Sunday." "Yeah, whatever. Mom's in the kitchen. Try not to mention your salary today, all right? We don't need to hear how much better you think you are." I walked past him, smelling the stale scent of cigarettes and cheap beer on his breath. Inside, the house was chaotic. My nephew, Lucas, who is 10 years old, was running around the living room screaming at a video game. My sister-in-law, Elena, was on the couch scrolling through her phone, not lifting a finger to help Mom. And Natalie, the guest of honor, was setting the table. "Josh!" Mom came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a rag. She looked tired. She always looked tired, and for years that look was enough to make me open my wallet. "You made it. Oh, is that the wine? Good. Put it on the table." "No, how are you?" "No, thanks for coming. Just a directive." I did as I was told. We sat down to eat about 20 minutes later. The tension was palpable. Caleb sat at the head of the table, a seat that used to belong to my father. He carved the roast beef like he was attacking it. "So," Caleb started, his mouth half full. "I saw you got a new suit, Josh. Silk lining." "It's just a suit, Caleb," I replied, cutting into my potatoes. "Must be nice," Elena chimed in, not looking up from her plate. "We've been trying to save for Lucas's college fund, but it's hard when Caleb's business is transitioning. Transitioning. That was the code word for failing. Caleb had started 4 businesses in 5 years. I had bailed out 3 of them. "Well," I said, trying to pivot the conversation, "we're here to celebrate Natalie. Congrats on the promotion, Nat assistant manager, right?" Natalie looked up, a brief flash of pride in her eyes. "Yeah, it comes with a small raise and—" "It's retail, Nat," Caleb interrupted, slamming his fork down. "Let's not act like she's running Wall Street like Mr. Big Shot over here. It's barely a living wage." Natalie shrank into her chair. "I know, Caleb. I was just saying. Dad would have been proud," I said firmly, looking at my sister. "Dad would have wondered why you aren't married yet." Caleb shot back. 36 and single. "What's the matter, Josh? Can't find a woman who loves you for you, instead of your bank account." "Caleb, stop," Mom said, but her voice lacked any real authority. It was the same tone she used when he was 12 and setting fires in the backyard. Weak, permissive. Lucas, my 10-year-old nephew, had been quiet this whole time. He was watching Caleb, his eyes wide. He worshipped his father. And that's when it happened. I was cutting a piece of steak. I had the fork halfway to my mouth. Lucas stood up on his chair. He leaned over the table. "Dad says you're a thief," Lucas announced. His voice was high and clear. The table went silent. "Lucas, sit down," Elena said. But she was smiling. "No," Lucas insisted. "Dad says Uncle Josh steals money from people to buy his cars. Dad says he's a bad man." I looked at Caleb. He was smirking. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked proud. "And Dad says," Lucas continued, gathering saliva in his mouth, "that you deserve this." Before I could react, the boy leaned forward and spit. A thick, wet glob landed directly on my plate, right on top of the steak I was about to eat. Time seemed to freeze. I looked at the plate. I looked at the spit. Then I looked at the boy. I expected horror. I expected my mother to scream. I expected Caleb to grab his son and drag him out of the room. Instead, silence. And then, a sound that cut deeper than any knife. Caleb chuckled. Well, Caleb laughed, a deep, raspy sound. Kids don't lie, do they? Talk about direct delivery. Then Elena started giggling. Oh my God, Lucas, you are terrible. She was laughing. She wasn't scolding him. She was laughing like he'd just told a clever joke. I looked at Natalie, my sister, the one I had helped with rent 3 times last year. She had her hand over her mouth, her shoulders shaking. She met my eyes, and then looked away, letting out a snort of laughter. I looked at my mother, the woman I paid the mortgage for, the woman whose health insurance premiums came out of my account every month. She was shaking her head, a small, amused smile on her lips. Oh, Lucas, she sighed, like he had just spilled milk. Josh, don't be dramatic. He's just a child. Well, it was a little funny. It was a little funny. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was the quiet sound of a bridge burning. I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I realized in that moment that any display of emotion would just be fuel for them. They wanted me angry. They wanted me hurt. I picked up my napkin and wiped my mouth. I stood up. Where are you going? Caleb asked, his smile faltering slightly at my lack of reaction. Sit down, Josh. Don't be such a baby. Just spit. Wipe it off. I think I've lost my appetite, I said calmly. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Cold, distant. Oh, come on, Mom said, annoyed now. Don't ruin Natalie's night. Sit down. I'll get you a clean plate. No thank you, I said. Happy promotion, Natalie. I turned and walked to the door. If you walk out that door, Josh, Caleb shouted after me, don't bother coming back. We don't need your attitude. You think you're better than us? You're nothing. I closed the front door behind me, cutting off his voice. The silence of the night air hit me. I walked to my Porsche. I got in. I drove away. My hands were shaking so hard I had to pull over 3 blocks away. I sat there in the dark, breathing heavy, staring at the dashboard. I felt sick, not from the spit, but from the laughter. That unified, cruel laughter. They hated me. I realized it then. They didn't love me. They tolerated me because I was useful, but they despised me for my success. I drove home. I poured myself a drink. I sat in my living room, staring at the wall. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. It was a message to the family group chat. Mom, I am so disappointed in you, Josh. Walking out like that. You embarrassed me in front of Elena. Lucas is a child. He was playing. You acted like a spoiled brat. Do not contact us again until you can learn to take a joke and apologize to your brother. I stared at the screen. Apologize to my brother? For his son spitting on me? Then, a notification. Natalie reacted to, I am so disappointed, with a thumbs up. My sister, the peacekeeper, the one who claimed to be neutral. She chose a side. I looked at that thumbs up emoji. It was a small, yellow pixelated hand, but it felt like a slap in the face. I typed my reply. My fingers were steady now. Understood. Mortgage autopay ends tomorrow. I hit send. I put the phone down on the coffee table. I took a sip of my drink. Took exactly 3 minutes. At 11:47 p.m., the chat exploded. The phone didn't just buzz. It danced across the coffee table. First, it was a text from Caleb. WTF? Then Natalie, Josh, don't be crazy. Then Mom, what does that mean? Joshua, answer me. I watched the notifications stack up like Tetris blocks. I didn't unlock the phone. I didn't read the full messages. I simply turned the device off, walked into my bedroom, and for the first time in years, I slept without the weight of their expectations on my chest. The next morning, the silence in my apartment was heavy. I woke up at 6 a.m., my usual routine. I made coffee, the grinder loud in the quiet kitchen. I stood by the window looking out at the city skyline. It was Monday. I had work to do. I turned my phone back on. 58 missed calls. 43 text messages. 12 voicemails. I sat at my kitchen island and scrolled through them, feeling like a forensic accountant reviewing a crime scene. Voicemail from Mom. 12:15 a.m. Joshua, you pick up this phone. You cannot threaten me like that. That is my house. You have an obligation to this family. Call me back right now or, God help me, Josh, stop being so cruel. Cruel. The irony tasted metallic in my mouth. Voicemail from Caleb. 12:30 a.m. You think you're big, huh? You think because you have a little money you can control us? Mom is crying her eyes out. If you don't fix this, I'm coming down there and I'm gonna smash that pretty little car of yours. You hear me? I saved that one. A threat of property damage was useful. Voicemail from Natalie. 7 a.m. Her voice was shaky, quiet. Josh, look, I'm sorry about the thumbs up. Okay. Caleb was watching me. He took my phone. Please don't do this. You know Mom can't pay the mortgage without you. And I need to ask you something later. Just call me. I deleted that one. Caleb took my phone. The oldest excuse in the book. Natalie had been making excuses for Caleb since we were teenagers. I let my mind drift back, the memories hitting me like a physical blow. It wasn't always this way, or maybe it was, and I was just too blind to see it. When our father died, I was 20, Caleb was 22. Dad left behind a small life insurance policy and his pride and joy, a 1969 Mustang he'd been restoring for a decade. By rights, the car should have been split or sold to help Mom. But Mom insisted. Caleb needs it, Josh. He's the oldest. It's tradition. Besides, you're smart. You're going to college. You'll buy your own cars. Caleb, he needs a win. Caleb got the car. He wrecked it 6 months later driving drunk. He walked away without a scratch. The car was scrap metal. Mom never scolded him. She just cried and thanked God he was alive. Meanwhile, I was working nights at a warehouse to pay for my tuition so I wouldn't burden the family. When I graduated and got my first job as a junior analyst, the first thing I did was pay off Mom's credit card debt. $15,000. Took me 2 years of eating ramen. She never said thank you. She just said, good. Now we can breathe. Always we when it came to debts, but always you when it came to success. I snapped back to the present. The we was over. I showered, dressed in my silk-lined suit, and drove to my office. But instead of going to my desk, I made a detour to the 14th floor. Lawyer is a high RPM keyword in my life right now, and for good reason. My friend, Davis, is a shark in a 3-piece suit. He handles estate law and asset management. Josh, Davis said, closing his door as I walked in. You look like you've gone 12 rounds. I feel like it, I said, sitting down. I need you to pull the file on 42 Oak Street. Davis raised an eyebrow. Your mom's place? Everything okay? I'm cutting them off, Davis. All of them. The mortgage, the stipends, the insurance. Everything. Davis whistled low. Nuclear option. What happened? Lucas spit in my food, I said flatly. And they laughed. Davis didn't laugh. His face hardened. Say no more. I'll pull the deed and the trust documents. But Josh, you know how the title is structured on that house, right? It's going to get messy. I know, I said. That's why I'm here. I need to know exactly where I stand legally before I drop the hammer. And I need you to draft a cease and desist for Caleb. He threatened my property. Done, Davis said, typing rapidly. But Josh, the mortgage isn't the only thing. You have Lucas's private school tuition on your credit card. You have your mom's supplemental health plan. You have Natalie's car insurance bundle. I nodded. Cancel it. All of it. Today. The school tuition is non-refundable for the semester, Davis warned. I don't care. Let Caleb pay for the next semester. He's the father. Leaving Davis's office, I felt a strange mix of nausea and liberation. I was dismantling the infrastructure of my family's life. I was the structural support, and I was walking away. The building was going to collapse. My phone rang again. It was Natalie. I stared at it. I wanted to ignore it, but curiosity, that dangerous thing, got the better of me. I answered. What? I said. Josh. She sounded relieved and frantic. Oh God, you answered. Listen, you have to turn the autopay back on. Mom got a notification from the bank this morning that the payment was canceled. She's hyperventilating. She has a savings account, Natalie. She can pay it. She doesn't. Natalie cried. She gave that money to Caleb last month for his inventory. Josh, the account is empty. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Then Caleb can pay it back, I said. You know he can't. Josh, please. Brian, that's my useless brother-in-law, is freaking out because my car insurance cancellation notice just hit his email. We can't afford that premium. It's a luxury SUV. Then sell the luxury SUV and buy a Honda, I said coldly. You laughed, Natalie. You gave a thumbs up. That thumbs up cost you your insurance. I told you Caleb made me. You're 32 years old, Natalie. Nobody makes you do anything unless you let them. You chose him. Now you can live with him. Wait! She screamed as I went to hang up. Josh, wait. It's not just that. Caleb, he's coming to your office. He left an hour ago. He's crazy, Josh. He took a baseball bat. My blood ran cold. My office had security, but my car was in the open visitor lot today because the garage was being resurfaced. When did he leave? An hour ago. He said he was going to teach you a lesson about respect. I hung up. I didn't run, but I walked very fast to the elevator. I needed to get down to the lobby. Not to protect the car, it was insured, but because if Caleb attacked me or my property on company grounds, I wouldn't just sue him. I would end him. I hit the lobby floor just as the revolving doors spun. I saw him. Caleb looked like a storm cloud in a dirty flannel shirt. He was marching across the polished marble floor of the investment firm where I worked, carrying a duffel bag. Security hadn't stopped him yet because he hadn't done anything but walk aggressively. But the guard, a big guy named Marcus, was already stepping out from behind the desk. I stepped out of the elevator bank. Caleb! He spun around. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept. There he is! Caleb shouted, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. The big man, the king of Wall Street. People turned to stare. Clients in suits, receptionists, my boss Mr. Sterling, who was just walking in from the coffee shop. Security, I said to Marcus, keeping my eyes on my brother. Please escort him out. You don't tell me what to do, Caleb roared. He dropped the duffel bag. He didn't pull out a bat. He pulled out a tire iron. You cut Mom off? Caleb screamed, advancing on me. She fed you. She clothed you. And you cut her off over a joke. It wasn't a joke, Caleb, I said, standing my ground. And this is a place of business. Leave. Now. Or what? You gonna call the cops? You coward. He pointed the tire iron at me. You think you're better than us with your fancy suits and your Porsche. You think that car makes you a man. The car is just a car, Caleb. The fact that I pay my own bills makes me a man. That broke him. He turned and ran back out the revolving doors. My car, I yelled. I ran after him, Marcus close behind me. We burst out onto the sidewalk. My Panamera was parked right in the front row of the visitor lot. Caleb was already there. He raised the tire iron high above his head. No! I shouted. Crunch. The sound of metal hitting glass is distinctive. It's a sickening, shattering pop. The tire iron came down on the windshield of my Porsche. The safety glass spiderwebbed instantly. Caleb, stop! Wham! He hit the hood. The pristine gray metal buckled. This is what you deserve, he screamed, swinging wildly. You think you can look down on me? Marcus tackled him before he could swing a third time. It wasn't a contest. Marcus was 250 pounds of muscle. He slammed Caleb into the pavement, pinning his arm behind his back. The tire iron clattered across the asphalt. Get off me, Caleb spat, thrashing. That's my brother. It's a family dispute. You're under arrest for destruction of property, Marcus said calmly, pressing his knee into Caleb's back. Someone call 911. I stood there, looking at my car. My windshield was destroyed. My hood had a massive dent. But as I looked at Caleb, face pressed against the dirty concrete, screaming obscenities, I didn't feel angry about the car. I felt a cold, hard resolve solidifying in my chest. Josh, Caleb yelled, seeing me standing over him. Tell him to let me go. Josh, don't let them arrest me. I have a record, Josh. If I go in, I'm screwed. I knew he had a record. Petty theft, assault in a bar fight. A violation of parole would send him away for a year minimum. Josh, please, think about Mom. I looked down at him. I am thinking about Mom, I said. I'm thinking she raised a criminal. I turned to the receptionist who had followed us out. Call the police. I want to press charges. No, Josh, no. 10 minutes later, the police cruiser arrived. They cuffed him and shoved him into the back seat. I gave my statement. I watched them drive him away. My phone rang. It was Mom. I stared at the screen. She knew. Someone, probably Caleb, using his one phone call, or maybe he texted her before the tackle, had told her. I answered. You monster, she shrieked. It was a sound I had never heard from her. It was feral. You let them take your brother? You called the police on your own blood. He smashed my car with a tire iron, Mom. At my workplace. It's just a car, she sobbed. He's a person. He was upset. You provoked him by cutting off the money. This is your fault. My fault. I walked back into the lobby, seeking a quiet corner. He committed a crime, Mom. Actions have consequences. Drop the charges, she demanded. Her voice went cold. Drop them right now, Joshua. If you send your brother to jail, you are dead to me. I thought I was already dead to you, I said. You told me not to contact you, remember? I didn't mean it. I was angry, but this is betrayal. He has Lucas to take care of. Who is going to feed Lucas if Caleb is in jail? Maybe you can, I said, with the money you saved by not paying the mortgage. How dare you? Josh, listen to me. I made some chicken soup. Your favorite. Why don't you come over? We can talk about this. I'll get Caleb out on bail and we can sit down and fix this. Please, come home. The pivot was dizzying. 1 second I was a monster, the next she was offering chicken soup. It was the cycle of abuse I had lived in for 30 years. Blow up, abuse, offering of food, pretend it never happened. Mom, I asked, my voice trembling slightly. I have one question. If you answer it honestly, I might consider dropping the charges. Anything, she said quickly. Ask me. When Lucas spit on me, and everyone laughed. Why did you laugh? Silence. The line crackled. I told you, she said, her voice hesitant. It was just nerves. It was a nervous reaction. No, it wasn't, I said. You enjoyed it. You liked seeing me taken down a peg. You liked seeing the rich son humbled by the favorite son's child. That's not true, she whispered, but the lack of conviction was deafening. I love you both equally. No, Mom. You love Caleb. You use me. Josh, don't say that. I'm not coming over for soup. I'm not dropping the charges. And Mom, you need to find a new place to live. What? She sounded confused. What are you talking about? The mortgage. It's not just that I'm stopping the payments. I'm selling the house. You can't sell my house. It's my name on the deed. I took a deep breath. This was it. The first twist of the knife. Are you sure about that, Mom? Are you sure it's your name? Of course it is. Your father left it to me. Dad left it to you with a second mortgage you took out to pay for Caleb's legal fees 10 years ago. Remember? You almost lost it. The bank foreclosed 3 years ago. Yes, and I fixed it. I refinanced. No, Mom. You didn't refinance. You didn't have the credit score. I bought it. Silence on the line. Absolute terrified silence. I bought the house from the bank to stop the eviction, I said, spelling it out. I put it in my name so Caleb couldn't convince you to borrow against it again. You signed the papers, Mom. You didn't read them, did you? You just signed where I told you to sign because you were crying about losing the home. You tricked me. I saved you. I let you live there rent-free for 3 years. But I'm the landlord, Mom. And I'm evicting you. I hung up the phone. I stood in the lobby, shaking. I had played my ace. The house was mine. But as I looked out at my smashed car, I knew this wasn't over. They wouldn't go quietly. The afternoon was a blur of police reports, insurance claims, and calls with Lawyer Davis. I had to rent a car, a generic Ford Taurus, while the Porsche was towed to a specialist body shop. Driving that Ford felt like putting on a disguise. I felt invisible again, which was exactly what I needed. I drove to a diner on the outskirts of town. I needed to eat and I needed to think. My phone was still exploding, but I had silenced the family group chat. However, a text from Natalie came through on a separate channel. Meet me. Starbucks on 5th. Alone. Please. It's about Caleb. I hesitated. Was it a trap? Maybe. But Natalie was the weak link. If I was going to dismantle the family defense, I needed to break her first. I walked into the Starbucks 20 minutes later. Natalie was sitting in the back corner, wearing sunglasses even though it was overcast. She looked terrible, pale, shaking. I didn't think you'd come, she whispered as I sat down. You have 5 minutes, Nat, before I block you too. I can't believe you had him arrested, she said. But there was no accusation in her voice, only fear. He's going to kill you when he gets out. Let him try. He'll be in jail for a while. Bail is set high because of his priors. Natalie took off her sunglasses. Her eye was bruised, a nasty yellow-purple welt on her cheekbone. I froze. Did he hit you? Natalie looked down at her coffee cup. He needed money for a lawyer. I told him I didn't have any because you cut off the car insurance and I had to pay the premium to get to work. He threw a remote at me. Jesus, Nat. My anger toward her softened, replaced by a wave of exhausted pity. Why do you protect him? Because he knows, she whispered. Tears leaked out of her eyes. Josh, I messed up. 2 years ago, I had an affair. I stared at her. Natalie and Brian had been high school sweethearts. Brian was annoying, but he was loyal. Does Brian know? No, only Caleb. He caught me. I was stupid. It was a coworker. It ended, but Caleb found texts on my phone when he borrowed it. He's been blackmailing me ever since. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. The thumbs up. The constant defense of Caleb. The money she loaned him that she never got back. He makes you pay him? Every month, she sobbed. $500. Or he sends the screenshots to Brian. If Brian finds out, he'll leave me. He'll take the kids. I can't lose my kids, Josh. So you helped him abuse me? I said, my voice hard again. To save yourself. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I hated laughing at that dinner. I hated it. But if I don't make him happy. He's a parasite, I said. He feeds on all of us. What are you going to do? She asked, looking at me with desperate eyes. I'm going to evict Mom, and Caleb, and Elena. You can't, she gasped. Mom, where will she go? She can live with you. Oh wait, she can't, because Brian hates her. Josh, please. If you kick them out, Caleb will blow up my life. He'll release the photos just to spite me for not stopping you. Let him, I said. Nat, you're living in a prison. Brian deserves to know. Tell him yourself. Tonight. Take away Caleb's power. I can't. Then you go down with the ship, I said, standing up. I'm done saving people who don't want to be saved. I left her crying in the Starbucks. It was cold, I know, but I had to be. I drove back to my apartment. Sarah was there. Sarah is my girlfriend of 6 months. She's a teacher, kind, patient, the complete opposite of my family. She had a key. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch, looking at her laptop with a frown. Hey, she said, looking up. You okay? I saw the news. Well, the neighborhood gossip page. Someone posted a video of a fight at your office. Yeah, that was Caleb. Josh. She stood up and hugged me. I melted into her arms. It was the first time I had been touched with affection in 48 hours. I'm so sorry. It gets worse, she said, pulling back. I got a message on Facebook. From Elena. My stomach dropped. What did she say? Sarah turned the laptop around. It was a long, rambling message from Elena's account. You need to know who you're sleeping with. Joshua is a violent man. He hit his own mother. He stole our family home. He's putting his brother in jail because he's jealous. Ask him about the charity money he stole from his job. Watch your back, sweetie. He looks nice, but he's a monster. She's trying to get you fired, I realized. The charity money comment. If she sends that to my firm's HR. I didn't believe it, Sarah said firmly. But Josh, she tagged the school board in a separate post. She's trying to ruin my reputation too. Calling me the girlfriend of an abuser. That was the line. They attacked my car. They attacked my dignity. Now they were attacking the woman I loved. I need to call Davis, I said, pulling out my phone. Wait, Sarah said. There's one more thing. Davis called the house phone while you were out. He said to call him immediately. He found something in the county records. I called Davis on speaker. Josh, Davis answered on the first ring. We have a problem. Or rather, Caleb has a huge problem, and you have a smoking gun. What is it? I pulled the title history like you asked. Did you know there was an application for a home equity line of credit submitted last week on the house? What? I didn't apply for that. Exactly, Davis said. But the application is here. It has your name on it. But the signature is not yours. It looks like a bad forgery. And the beneficiary account for the funds? It's an LLC registered to Caleb Sterling. My jaw dropped. He tried to mortgage my house? He tried. The bank flagged it because of the signature mismatch. But they hadn't rejected it formally yet. Josh, this is felony fraud. Identity theft. Bank fraud. If we give this to the district attorney, Caleb isn't looking at a few months for the car assault. He's looking at 5 to 10 years in federal prison. I looked at Sarah. I looked at the screen where Elena had called me a monster. Do it, I said. Package it up. But don't send it to the police yet. I need to show it to them first. Why? Davis asked. Just nail him. Because I need to see the look on his face, I said. And I need to get Mom to admit the truth before he goes away. I need a confession. Josh, don't do anything stupid. I'm not. Set up a meeting. Tomorrow. Tell them I'm willing to negotiate the eviction. Tell them to meet me at the house. You're walking into the lion's den, Sarah warned. No, I said, touching the screen where the forgery evidence was. I'm walking in as the zookeeper. The next morning, the sky was gray and heavy with rain. Fitting. I bailed Caleb out. Yes, you heard that right. I paid the bond. $5,000. Felt counterintuitive, but I needed him there. I needed the whole cast of characters for the finale. If he was in a cell, he could play the martyr. If he was in the room, he would hang himself. I drove the rental Ford to the house. The driveway was empty. Caleb's truck was impounded. I walked up the steps. The door wasn't locked. I walked in. They were all there in the living room. It was like a twisted reflection of the Sunday dinner. Mom was in her armchair, clutching a tissue. Caleb was pacing, wearing the same clothes he was arrested in, smelling of sweat and jail. Elena was holding Lucas on her lap, whispering to him. Natalie was in the corner, wearing dark sunglasses to hide the bruise. "You have some nerve," Caleb spat as I entered. "Bailing me out just to gloat? You think you own us?" "Sit down, Caleb," I said, placing my briefcase on the coffee table. "Don't tell me what to do in my mother's house. Sit down." My voice wasn't loud, but it was absolute. He sat. "Josh," Mom started, her voice trembling. "Thank you for bringing him home. I knew you'd come to your senses. We can put this behind us. Just turn the payments back on and we'll forget you called the police." I looked at her. The delusion was breathtaking. "We aren't forgetting anything, Mom. We're here to talk about the future." I opened the briefcase. I took out 3 stacks of papers. "Stack 1, I said, sliding it toward Caleb. "The police report for the damage to my car. Estimate is $12,000. Plus legal fees." Caleb scoffed. "I don't have $12,000. You can't get blood from a stone." "Stack 2, I said, sliding the next pile toward Elena. "Screenshots of your posts harassing Sarah and the school board. That's defamation of character. My lawyer is drafting a lawsuit for $50,000 in damages." Elena paled. I was just defending my family." "By lying?" I asked. "You're going to delete them right now, in front of me, or I file the suit." She scrambled for her phone. "And stack 3, I said, holding the thickest folder. "I didn't slide this one. I held it. This is the deed to the house." We know," Caleb interrupted. "Mom says you tricked her into signing it over. That won't hold up in court. Elder abuse. We'll sue you back." I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Tricked her? Mom. Tell him." Mom looked at the floor. "Tell him, Mom. Tell him about the foreclosure notices 3 years ago. Tell him about the gambling debts you paid off for him that caused you to miss the payments. Tell him I bought the house at fair market value to save you from being homeless." "Is that true?" Caleb looked at Mom. I did it for you, Caleb." Mom sobbed. "I didn't want you to worry." "So it is his house?" Caleb's face went red. "Yes," I said. "It is. Which brings me to this." I pulled out a single sheet of paper from the folder. "This is a bank loan application, dated last week, for $100,000 against the equity of my house." The room went deathly silent. "That's my name," I said, pointing to the applicant line. "But that's not my signature. That looks like your handwriting, Caleb. And the notary stamp? That's fake." Caleb stopped breathing. "Identity theft, bank fraud, forgery, federal crimes, Caleb. Lawyer Davis says this is 5 to 10 years. No bail, no parole." Caleb slumped back in the sofa. The fight drained out of him instantly. He looked small. I needed the money," he whispered, "for a business idea. I was going to pay it back before you noticed." "With a lien on my house?" I shook my head. "You were stealing from me. Again." "Please," Elena cried out. "Please, Josh, don't turn that in. He just got out. He can't go to federal prison. Lucas needs his father." I looked at Lucas. The boy was staring at me, terrified. "Lucas," I said gently, "come here." "No." Elena grabbed him. "Let him come," I said sternly. Lucas walked over to me. "Lucas," I said, "did your dad tell you to spit on me?" Lucas looked at his dad, then at me. He nodded. "Did he tell you I was a thief?" "Nod. I'm not a thief, Lucas. I bought this house so your grandma could live here. Your dad, he made a mistake. A bad one." I looked up at the adults. "Here is the deal," I said. "I won't turn in the fraud papers. Not today." Caleb let out a ragged breath. "Thank you, Josh. Thank you. But," I continued, "you are all moving out. Today." "What?" Mom gasped. "Josh, where will I go?" "I don't know, Mom. Maybe you can stay with Natalie." "Oh wait, Natalie." I looked at my sister. She took a deep breath. She took off her sunglasses, revealing the bruise to everyone. "What happened to your face?" Mom asked, horrified. "Caleb hit me with a remote," Natalie said, her voice shaking but clear. "And I told Brian. About the affair. About the blackmail." Caleb's eyes widened. "You bitch. Brian kicked me out," Natalie said, tears streaming down her face. "But he knows the truth now. You have nothing on me anymore, Caleb." I looked back at Mom. "So Natalie can't take you. Caleb is going to be busy finding a job to pay me back for the car if he wants to stay out of jail. So, Mom, you're on your own. You're evicting your own mother?" Mom wailed. "After all I did for you?" "You laughed," I said softly. "When he spit on me, you laughed. That was the moment, Mom. That was when I realized I didn't have a mother. I just had a dependent." I stood up. "You have 30 days to vacate. Legally, I have to give you that. But if I see Caleb on this property again, or if I see one more nasty post from Elena, I deliver the fraud evidence to the FBI. Do we understand each other?" Caleb nodded, staring at the floor. "Good. Now get out of my sight." I walked out of the house. I didn't look back. I got into the rental car and drove away. The next 30 days were a strange kind of purgatory. I didn't speak to them, but I heard about the fallout through Davis and the grapevine. The family imploded. Without my money acting as the glue, everything fell apart. Caleb and Elena moved into a cheap motel. Caleb got a job at a construction site, hard labor, the first real work he'd done in a decade. He had to. The threat of federal prison kept him in line. Natalie moved into a small apartment. She and Brian were separated, maybe heading for divorce, but she was free. She started therapy. She sent me a letter, a real handwritten letter apologizing. She didn't ask for money. That was a start. And Mom? Mom was the hardest part. She refused to leave until the sheriff came with the eviction notice on day 31. She made a scene. She screamed that I was an ungrateful son. She called the neighbors to witness her suffering. But Mrs. Higgins next door? She told Mom, "Margaret, that boy paid your bills for years and you treated him like a dog. Go on, get." Mom moved in with a distant cousin 2 towns over. She still calls me sometimes. I don't answer. Not yet. 6 months later. I was sitting in my new apartment, a penthouse I bought after selling Mom's house. The market was hot. I made a killing. The buzzer rang. It was Sarah, and she had a guest. Lucas. Elena had reached out. She had left Caleb. Apparently, poverty didn't suit her, and Caleb's temper had gotten worse without me as a punching bag. She was trying to do better for Lucas. She asked if Lucas could see me. I opened the door. Lucas looked different. Taller. Quieter. "Hi, Uncle Josh," he said, looking at his shoes. "Hi, Lucas." He held out a card. It was handmade, drawn in crayon. It showed a stick figure spitting with a big red X over it. And next to it, 2 stick figures holding hands. "I'm sorry," it said inside. "Dad was wrong." I felt a lump in my throat. I knelt down and hugged him. He hugged me back, tight. "It's okay, buddy," I said. "We're okay." Later that night, sitting on my balcony with Sarah, looking at the city lights, I realized something. I had lost my family. Yes, I lost the people who shared my DNA. But I had gained my life back. My bank account was growing, yes, but more importantly, my self-respect was intact. I took a sip of wine, the same vintage I had brought to that doomed dinner. Tasted better tonight. To anyone watching this who feels trapped by family obligation, who feels like they have to set themselves on fire to keep others warm, listen to me. The blood in your veins is biology. The love in your heart is a choice. Don't let anyone, not even your mother, treat you like an option when you treat them like a priority. Cost me a windshield, a house, and a lot of heartache. But buying my freedom? Best investment I ever made. You might think that walking away is the end of the story. You might think that once the eviction notice is served and the fraud evidence is laid on the table, the credits roll and I ride off into the sunset in a brand new Porsche. But real life isn't a movie. The climax is sharp and adrenaline-filled. But the fallout? The fallout is a long, slow grind. It's the difference between surviving a car crash and learning how to walk again. The 30 days after the eviction notice were not quiet. They were a war of attrition. I didn't just have to evict my mother. I had to dismantle the physical museum of my family's dysfunction. The house on Oak Street wasn't just a building. It was a vault of secrets, guilt, and bad memories. And before I could sell it, I had to clear it out. Legally, once the 30 days were up, anything left inside was considered abandoned property. But because I'm not a monster, despite what my mother's Facebook friends now believed, I hired a moving company to pack up Mom's essentials and ship them to her cousin's place. I paid for it. It was the last check I would ever write for her. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I stood in the living room. It was empty, echoing. The carpet still had the indentation marks where the heavy oak dining table had sat, the table where I was spit on. The air smelled of dust and old lemon polish. My lawyer, Davis, met me there. He was carrying a thick binder. "You ready for the final walkthrough before the listing goes live?" Davis asked. "I just want it gone, Davis. Sell it as is. I don't care if we take a loss." "We won't take a loss," Davis said, his voice practical. "The market is hungry. But we need to talk about the Caleb situation regarding the plea deal." This was the part of the story that kept me up at night. The fraud. The forgery. "Did he take it?" I asked. "He did," Davis nodded. "His public defender was smart. He knew if we took the bank fraud to a federal trial, Caleb was looking at 5 years minimum. So they cut a deal. He pled guilty to a lesser charge of attempted theft by deception and the destruction of property for your car. The sentence: 2 years probation, mandatory anger management, restitution for the Porsche, and a restraining order. He can't come within 500 feet of you or your workplace. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. So he's not going to prison. Not unless he screws up, Davis said. But Josh, with a felony record for fraud, his business days are over. He can't get a loan. He can't get a liquor license. He can't even get a job at a bank or handling cash. You didn't just stop him. You clipped his wings permanently. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it just felt heavy. I didn't want to destroy my brother's life. I just wanted him to stop destroying mine. "And Natalie?" I asked. "That's the other file," Davis said, handing me a manila envelope. "The divorce papers. Brian is playing dirty. He's gunning for full custody of the kids. He's claiming Natalie is unstable because she covered up her brother's crimes." I took the envelope. Natalie had come clean, but the truth has shrapnel. Brian, the man who laughed when I was humiliated, was now playing the moral crusader. "I need to help her," I said. Davis looked at me sharply. "Josh, you just got out. You want to jump back in?" "Not with money," I corrected him. "Not like before. I'm not paying her rent. I'm not buying her groceries. But she needs a lawyer who can chew Brian up and spit him out. I want you to represent her. I'll front the retainer as a loan. A formal, legal loan with interest. She signs a promissory note. She pays me back." Davis smiled, a slow, shark-like grin. "Now you're thinking like a creditor, not a brother. I like it. I'll take the case." The next few months were a blur of legal motions and contractor meetings. I renovated the house. I ripped out the carpet where the table stood. I painted over the beige walls my mother loved with a stark, clean white. I wanted to erase every trace of the people who had lived there. When the house finally sold, I didn't feel sentimental. I felt like I had just had a tumor removed. The check for the equity cleared into my account. A significant sum, enough to fully fund my own retirement and then some. It was blood money in a way. But I washed it clean by investing it in my future. But the real test came in the courtroom during Natalie's custody hearing. I was there as a character witness. I sat in the gallery watching my sister. She looked different. She had lost weight, but she looked stronger. She wasn't hiding behind sunglasses anymore. She was wearing a cheap suit she bought at a thrift store, but she wore it with dignity. Brian's lawyer was brutal. He painted Natalie as a liar, an adulterer, an accomplice to a felon. He brought up the text messages Caleb had used to blackmail her. Then it was Davis's turn. Davis didn't defend the affair. He didn't make excuses. He simply put Brian on the stand. "Mr. Sterling," Davis asked, pacing in front of the witness box, "you claim you are the stable, moral parent, correct?" "Absolutely," Brian said, adjusting his tie. He looked smug. "And you claim Mrs. Sterling is unfit because she allowed a toxic environment for the children? She let her criminal brother around them." "Yes." "Mr. Sterling," Davis paused, glancing at me in the back of the room. "Do you recall a dinner on Sunday, May 12th? Brian stiffened. "I don't recall the specific date. It was the night your son, Lucas, spit in his uncle's face. Do you remember that?" Vague recollection. Vague. Davis pulled out a tablet. "We have a sworn affidavit from your son's therapist. Would you like me to read what Lucas said about that night?" He said, and I quote, "Dad told me Uncle Josh was a bad man and it would be funny to spit on him. Dad laughed when I did it." The courtroom went silent. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, peered over her glasses at Brian. "Is that true, Mr. Sterling?" the judge asked. "Did you instruct your child to assault a family member?" "It was a joke," Brian sputtered, his face turning red. "It was just a prank." "And do you think teaching a child to spit on people is stable, moral parenting?" Davis asked quietly. Brian didn't have an answer. Natalie got shared custody. Brian didn't get a dime of alimony because of his own conduct during the marriage, hiding assets, which Davis also found. It wasn't a total victory. She still had to struggle, but she kept her kids. After the hearing, Natalie walked up to me in the hallway. She looked exhausted. "Thank you," she said, "for the loan. For Davis." "You have the payment schedule," I said, keeping my voice businesslike. "First payment is due on the 1st. "I know," she nodded. "I picked up extra shifts at the store. I'll pay you, Josh. I swear." "I know you will," I said. And for the first time I believed her. Because for the first time she had no safety net. She had to fly on her own. I walked out of the courthouse and into the bright afternoon sun. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah. "Dinner's ready. Come home." Home. That word used to mean obligation. Now it meant peace. But the universe has a funny way of testing your resolve one last time. It was a Tuesday, 6 months post-eviction. I was leaving my office building. I walked toward my rental car. The Porsche was still in the shop. Parts from Germany take forever. I saw a figure standing by the bus stop. It was Mom. She looked older, smaller. Her coat was worn. She wasn't the matriarch holding court at the head of the table anymore. She was just an old woman waiting for a bus. She saw me. Her eyes lit up with a flash of the old expectation, then dimmed into something like fear. I could have kept walking. I could have pretended I didn't see her. But I stopped. I stood there, 10 feet away. "Josh," she said. Her voice was thin. "You look good." "You too, Mom." I lied. She looked tired. I heard you sold the house." "I did." "I hope you got a good price." "I did." Silence stretched between us, filled with the roar of city traffic. "Caleb is working," she said suddenly. "He's pouring concrete. His back hurts every day. He hates it." "Honest work is good for the soul," I said. "He blames you, you know," she said, a hint of the old accusation creeping in. "He says you ruined his life." "I didn't ruin his life, Mom. I just stopped paying for it." She looked down at her shoes. "And me? Did I deserve this? Living in a guest room at Cousin Maud's? Eating cat food?" "You're not eating cat food, Mom. Maud is a good woman. And you have your social security. If you had saved the money I gave you instead of giving it to Caleb, you'd be in a condo in Florida right now." She flinched. The truth was a physical blow. "I miss my family," she whispered. "I miss Sunday dinners." "We don't have a family, Mom," I said, and saying it didn't hurt anymore. "We had a hostage situation. I just finally escaped." The bus pulled up with a screech of brakes. The doors hissed open. Are you ever going to invite me over?" she asked. one foot on the step. To your new place? I looked at her. I thought about the spit. I thought about the laughter. I thought about the silence when I needed defending. No, Mom, I said gently. I don't think I will. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded, a small, defeated motion. She got on the bus. I watched it drive away, disappearing into the traffic. I felt a tear run down my cheek. I wiped it away. It wasn't a tear of regret. It was the final drop of grief leaving my body. I was free. Thanksgiving. The ultimate American stress test for families. In the past, Thanksgiving meant Mom manic cleaning the house for 3 days, Caleb showing up late and drunk, Brian criticizing the turkey, and me writing a check to cover the groceries under the table, so Caleb wouldn't feel emasculated. This year, Thanksgiving was at my place. My new place. The penthouse was open and airy, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But it wasn't the luxury that made it different. It was the noise. There was no yelling. There was no tension. There was music, jazz playing softly in the background. Sarah was in the kitchen, laughing. She was teaching Lucas how to make stuffing. Yes, Lucas was there. Elena had dropped him off. She didn't come up, we maintained strict boundaries, but she allowed Lucas to be part of his uncle's life. Uncle Josh. Lucas ran out of the kitchen, his hands covered in flour. Sarah says we can put bacon in the stuffing. Is that legal? In this house? I smiled, grabbing a towel to wipe his hands. Bacon is mandatory. I looked around the room. It wasn't just us. Natalie was there, sitting on the patio with a glass of sparkling cider. She looked peaceful. She was talking to Mr. Sterling, my boss. I had invited him because his own kids were overseas, and he had been more of a father figure to me in the last year than my own dad ever was. Davis was there too, arguing playfully with Sarah's sister about football. This was my found family. The people who showed up. The people who didn't keep score. I walked over to the kitchen island to pour wine. Real wine. Not the stuff I bought to impress Caleb, but bottles I bought because I enjoyed them. You okay? Sarah asked, bumping her hip against mine. You look like you're zoning out. Just thinking, I said, wrapping an arm around her waist. About the difference a year makes. It's a good difference, she said, kissing my cheek. By the way, your sister brought a pie. She made it herself. It's burnt, but she made it. I laughed, a real deep laugh. I'll eat it, burnt crust and all. Dinner was served at 6 p.m. We sat around a long table I had built myself from reclaimed wood. I sat at the head, not because I demanded it, but because Sarah insisted. A toast, Mr. Sterling said, raising his glass. To Josh and Sarah. And to resilience. To resilience, everyone echoed. As we ate, I watched them. I watched Natalie help Lucas cut his turkey. I watched Davis make a joke that made Sarah spit out her water. Ironic? I know. But this time it was joy, not malice. I realized that for 35 years, I thought family was an obligation. I thought it was a debt you were born into, a mortgage you paid with your soul until you died. I thought setting boundaries was selfish. I thought saying no was a betrayal. But looking at this table, I understood the truth. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The people who stand by you when you have nothing to offer but your presence. Those are your family. The people who respect your no as much as your yes. Those are your family. After dinner, while everyone was in a food coma watching the game, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city air was crisp. Natalie came out a few minutes later. She stood beside me, wrapping her cardigan tighter. It's a nice place, Josh, she said. Thanks. I made my payment, she said quietly. I transferred it this morning. It's not much, but I got it, I said. You're on schedule. She hesitated. Did you hear about Caleb? No, and I don't want to. He's trying, she said. And for the first time, she wasn't making an excuse. She was just stating a fact. He's attending the anger management classes. He has to, or he goes to jail. But he asked about you. I stiffened. Don't worry, she said quickly. I didn't tell him anything. I told him that if he wants to talk to you, he has to earn it. And that it might take 10 years. Or 20. Or never. I looked at my sister. The weak, terrified woman who hid behind sunglasses was gone. In her place was someone who understood the cost of actions. Good, I said. That was the right answer. I love you, Josh, she said. And, I'm sorry. I will be sorry for the rest of my life. I know, Nat. I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia. We build from here. From here, she agreed. She went back inside. I stayed out for a moment longer. I pulled a small velvet box out of my pocket. I had been carrying it for 2 weeks. I walked back inside. The room quieted down as I approached Sarah. She was on the couch, Lucas asleep with his head on her lap. Sarah, I said. She looked up, seeing the look on my face. Her eyes went wide. I didn't get down on one knee. I didn't want to wake Lucas. I just sat on the coffee table in front of her. You told me once, I said, my voice thick with emotion, that love isn't transactional. You taught me that I don't have to buy affection. You loved me when my car was smashed, when my family was imploding, and when I was a mess of legal briefs and anger. Josh, she whispered. I opened the box. The diamond wasn't the biggest in the world. I was done with flashing wealth, but it was flawless. I want to build a real family, I said. With you. A family where we don't spit on each other. A family where we don't keep score. Will you marry me? Sarah didn't say yes immediately. She looked at Lucas sleeping on her lap. She looked at Natalie smiling in the corner. She looked at me. Only if you promise one thing, she said, tears in her eyes. Anything. Promise me we never, ever have Sunday dinner unless we actually want to. I laughed. I promise. Then yes, she said. 1,000 times yes. I slipped the ring on her finger. The room erupted in cheers, quiet cheers so as not to wake the boy, but cheers nonetheless. As I hugged my fiancée, surrounded by the people who actually gave a damn about me, I looked at my reflection in the dark window. I saw a man who was whole. I wasn't the rich brother anymore. I wasn't the ATM. I wasn't the thief. I was just Josh. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. If you've stuck with me through this entire saga, from the glob of spit on a steak to a diamond ring on a finger, I want to say thank you. But more importantly, I want to leave you with a lesson that took me 36 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn. We are often taught that family is everything. We are told to turn the other cheek, to forgive endlessly, to sacrifice our own well-being at the altar of keeping the peace. But here is the hard truth. Peace at the cost of your dignity is not peace. It is submission. Toxic family dynamics thrive in the dark. They thrive on the silence of victims who are too afraid to be called selfish or ungrateful. My mother and brother used my success as a weapon against me, and I handed them the ammunition every time I wrote a check to buy their love. I was an accomplice to my own abuse. Setting boundaries is not an act of hate. It is the highest form of self-love. When I cut the financial cord, I didn't just save my bank account. I saved my sister from her blackmail. I saved my nephew from becoming a bully like his father. And I saved myself from a lifetime of resentment. If you are reading this and you see yourself in my story, if you are the one always giving and never receiving, if you are the one being mocked by the people you support, please take this as your sign. You have the power to walk away. You have the right to close the door. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make the impossible choice to cut off a family member to save yourself? Or are you currently struggling with where to draw the line? Drop a comment below with your story, or simply type the word good if you believe that self-respect is worth fighting for. Your interaction tells the algorithm that these stories matter. But more than that, it tells me that I'm not alone, and neither are you. Thank you for watching, and remember, the family you build is often more important than the family you inherit. Stay strong.